All right, so welcome to our week 3, quarter 4 MAPE session. We have day number 2. It's all about intentional injuries also. Allow me to share my screen on my end so that we can start. But before we begin, let's try to read the objectives. Though I provided before the content standards and the performance standards, so we're all good with that and the milks for the quarter 4 week 3 health. Allow me naman para ma-target natin or makita yung mga pinaka-objectives natin today. So, let me zoom in. Now, to all my students here, I want you to copy this on your health notebook if possible para you have your copy also. So, at the end of the lesson, you should be able to recall the case, roots, and manifestation of different intentional injuries. So, yung mga napag-aralan natin last time, like the verbal abuse, um, sorry, not that one. We have the bullying, we have the domestic violence, we have the suicide and the parasuicide. So we'll just continue. Furthermore, what are the different classification types, concepts of the other intentional injuries that exist? So just a moment. Ayan. So kindly pause and then copy this one on your notebook. Then if you're done, then let's proceed with the next one. Allow me to present the next part on my screen. And there you go. So we'll continue now. We are now in the extortion. So last time we talked about, or we end up in discussing about the stalking, no? So when you talk about stalking, it's a pattern of behavior that makes you feel afraid, nervous, harassed, or in danger. Kadalasan yung may mga admiration towards other people, dito yung pinaka-base or dito nagsisimula, no? So, kumbaga, sometimes that kind of admiration further develop into obsession. So, if you have that kind of obsession or that people have that kind of obsession, basically that will go and become stalking sooner or later. Now, let's talk about extortion. So, by the way, pakicopy ito on your notebook, no? So when we talk about extortion, this is the act of using force or threats to force people to hand over their money or properties on favors. It can happen outside or near the school wherein children are victimized to give up their allowance in exchange for promise that they will not be beaten up. So it happened also in the bullying, no? Even inside the classroom. Some people further degree of bullying kapag kadalasan ng setup kapag bubugbugin na ng isang mahinang bata or ang isang mahinang tao, kadalasan they offer up the extortion. So instead of beating you up, you can hand over your money or yung gamit o pagkain nila para um, hindi na sila mabugpo. Kadalasan sa extortion, you have parang victim, parang one small victim or group of small of victim, and then they are extorted by people like nasagang, which is will be discussed furthermore as a fraternity and so on and so forth, or yung mga grupo-grupo sa loob ng classroom. Now, in order to prevent that way, we can report it, no? Gather up evidence, and at the same time, lalo na kapag nasa school is a peace zone. So zone of peace. So normally, if you have this kind of problem happen or encountered, you can report it to the guidance counselor or to the advisors, lalo na sa ating school. Now, we have the gang. So gang is defined as relatively tough, mostly street-based of young people who regard themselves and may be seen by others as a group that engage in a range of criminal activity and violence. No, so how are we going to differentiate fraternities from gang? So ang gang normally parang nabuo lang sila out of parang similarities in terms of fondness or parang gusto nila ang bawat isa, and at the same time they do have similar hobbies and interests, and eventually nagkasundo sila. And kadalasan ito ay nagagawa or nangyayari or nabubuo kapag yung mga kabataan with somehow is age bracket or similar age bracket is nagkakasundo. Eventually, yung gang, even adulthood nadadala nila. And nadidistinguish din natin ng gang kapag mahilig sila makipag-away. Kadalasan they are involved in riot and they are much less disciplined and organized in compared to the fraternity and sorority. So, yun yung pinaka-difference sila. So, medyo crude ang nasa gang kasi kadalasan kasi hindi, do not have yet formal backgrounds. So, kadalasan ito yung mga nasa out of school youth and mga nasa kalsada or tambay and so on and so forth. Okay, next one, ito naman yung isang grupo. We have the fraternity. And when we talk about fraternity, this is a group of people with similar background. And even in college or university, they exist. No, hindi kagaya ng gang, though parang kaunting cases lang ang nabubuo sa mga university and colleges pag mga gang. But kadalasan fraternity yan. They are organized, no? Parang it's a kind of exclusive organization or group within the premise. So they offer it into the youth one. So yung mga bagong pasok, like for example, first year, no? So they are lighting or nila-line up nila yung mga benefits pagkasama ka sa fraternity, and at the same time they do have initiations, no? And some of those initiation is nagkakos ng problema, no? Or na i-ingrain sa social culture. Kaya nga minsan, di ba, may mga nababalitaan tayo during the initiation of hazing, lalo na sa sorority and fraternity, is may mga, dahil sa excessive na beating, maraming namamatay and so on and so forth. No? So, due to that, the Philippine Society actually created the Republic Act 49 or anti-hazing law now prohibits the physical hazing in all fraternities and sorority and other organization in the school. So, yung mga paddle, yung mga pinapaso, yung mga nire-rate sa mga sorority, these are kind of initiation na nag-exist sa kanila. And sa ngayon, there are some people or there is some fraternity and sorority that do have a good deed, pero yung karamihan kasi is hindi rin okay. So example, may mga fraternity or sorority na tumutulong or environmental pro, ano pa, yung mga economical pro kasi due to brotherhood, tinutulungan nila yung mga brad nila para makapagtrabaho or makapagnegosyo or something like that. So, kaya lang kasi, lalo na yung mga nasa young ones sa fraternity and sorority, parang nagiging level na sila ng gang in terms of violence. So, instead, the focus of brotherhood is medyo nawawala na. But, hanggang ngayon, fraternity and sorority exists in the university and colleges, but some school actually prohibit this one, lalo na kapag medyo violent ang kanilang entry. Now, next one, we have kidnapping. So when we talk about kidnapping, this is taking away or forcefully moving a person against his or her will. So, ano pa? Kadalasan, the act is usually done for a motive like getting monetary reward, ransom, or getting some sort of benefits from the person to their family. So, ang kadalasan tinatarget lang naman sa kidnapping is either the key person or key member of the family members na kung saan pwede nilang gamitin yun as leverage para makakuha or makahutot sila ng pera kung saan kabilan man yung taong iyon. Next one, we have the abduction. When we talk about abduction, this is the use of deceit or force in order to take a person or child away from their home or relatives. Now, in abduction of the victim usually know or has some sort of relation with the abductor. Most of the time, abductor is not holding the victim for profit or any monetary gain. Abduction usually happens when the children with separated parents, wherein the child will be tricked by one parent to come with him or her, take the child away from the other parent who has sole custody of the child. No? So ito yung pagkakaiba ng abduction sa kidnapping, but always remember further development ng abduction events would result in kidnapping also. No? Nagkakaiba sila in terms of motive and the way that it was created or the way it was executed. No? So, kadalasan abduction, family members, kakilala, kapitbahay, and hindi, ang alam ko ang idea sa abduction is hindi more on the monetary or financial reason, but more on the parang mas makapiling yung mga ina-abduct, no? Or kinukuha yung isang tao para mas makasama niya yan. While for the kidnapping, it's more on towards of having gaining favors, gaining financial leverages, and so on and so forth. Now, this is the last part natin. We have the terrorism or act of terror. Kumbaga, kung i-degree natin sila or ila-level natin, street level, siguro mga gang, university, college, organizational level, we have the fraternity and sorority. Now, ang mas malaking grupo naman, which happen na nakakasama din sa ating lipunan is the terrorism. So, may mga masidhina na mga movement or may mga masidhina ng paniniwala. It could be against or it could be partly against to the government, no, or society. So terrorism is the use of violence for political goals. That's one thing na dapat natin tandaan, political goals and putting the public or a great number of people into fear. They are using fear in order to change some status and political co in the society. And the purpose of this terrorist groups is to produce terror in the victim using violence, fear, and pressure. So that's their way para mabago ang kung ano man yung established na meron sa society. Terrorists commits act of violence that draw the attention of the local mass, even media, the government, and the world to their cause. So, of course, the society itself is not actually, sabihin natin, hindi siya, the moment na nagkaroon ng biglaang terrorism, mareresolve kagad. It takes time, no? Like for example, yung nasa Mindanao, it takes time bago masugpo yung terrorism and it produce a lot of casualties, problems, and so on and so forth. No, so we have six categories of the acts of terrorism or terror. We have the state terrorism, bioterrorism, cyber terrorism, eco-terrorism, nuclear terrorism, and narco-terrorism. So let's try to differentiate them one by one. For the state, the idea is to how do I say this, to conquer some part of a nation or a country or a place. For the bioterrorism, they create terrorism that involves virus or viral spread of fear. We have the cyber terrorism. It's like of hacking the important files, um, important agencies, websites, and so on and so forth. Ecoterrorism naman, it's more on destroying, no, destroying the environment. Like for example, yung mga coral reef, yung sa Somalia, kinoconquer nila yung mga coral reef doon, no? Kasi may malaking benefit din kapag binebenta sa black market. So nuclear terrorism, terrorism that involved in nuclear, and last one, the narco-terrorism. So ang 1 and 6 ang pinakakadalasang nangyayari dyan, lalo na kapag involved ng cartel. So we have the narco-terrorism. Pero kapag involvement of beliefs and ideas, kadalasan state terrorism. But the other terrorism also exists in other some parts of the world. So for this one, we'll end up here. No, for the meantime, allow me to share my screen also. So for the day 2 of our week 1 health, just a moment. Yeah. Yan. So, ang gusto ko ipagawa, ganun din, dapat yung day 1 nyo ay tapos na din. Sa day 2, gawa kayo ng 3 to 5 sentences and explain it on your notebook or type it on the comment box kung ano yung mga nakuwang important G's and keys na natutunan natin this week 3. Sorry, it's quarter 4, week 3. Let me edit that. Week 3, day 2 of your health component session. So, another thing, allow me to stop the screen and change it, no? Ibibigay ko sa inyo kung ano na mga list of activities na nagawa na or ginagawa na dapat ngayon para kahit paano ma-remind kayo, no? So last quarter 4, week 1, we have in music. Allow me to zoom in. Yan. So quarter 4, week 1, zoom in, the what's new. Pag hindi kayo familiar, just let me know, no? and shot it on the group chat para ma-send ko rin as a mass. Quarter for performance test number 1 yung ginagawa natin, the culminating activity for the second week of June. Quarter for performance test number 2, opera audition, yung magsasend kayo sa akin ng short video, no, na kung saan kumakanta kayo or portraying some characters, no, kung saan man yan manggagaling. For the arts, we have quarter for the written work number 1 assessment. So, send na lang din. Ganun din. Same lang din ang performance task 1 and 2 sa music and arts kasi they are integrated for the opera production. Right? For the health, for the PE naman, sorry, yung quarter for written work number 1 assessment, just let me know, no? Kung wala pa kayo so that I can send it. And we have Mapesek Laban. This is for culminating, no, allow me to change this one. Culminating activity for last week of May and first week of June. Yan. So, ang element, di ba nagpa-practice kayo 2 days per week for the Mapes Siklaban. Ang idea dito is, on the last week of May, magkakaroon kayo ng tinatawag na parang elimination. Sa 3 lang ang makukuha mula sa 10 section sa grade 9. And then, yung papasok sila yung tutuloy sa first week of June. Now, kapag di man kayo nakapasok or pinalad, at least makakapag-focus na kayo sa opera. No? So, yun yung magiging parang transitions natin. Anyway, yung mga non-dancer, it highly recommend to help the dancers in formulating and crafting and creating the costumes, the props, and the needed for their mapesiklabans. And sa opera, ganun din. So this week, ilalatag na namin kung kailan din kayo magpe-present on the second week ng June. No? So, hopefully, everything works well, and just let me know if there's any problem. So that's all for our quarter 3, day 2, no, for our health intentional injuries. So allow me to stop and end the broadcast now. If you have questions, just let me know on the group chats. Thank you.